real shocking to some people, the toolboxes are cleaned up too. Hello everybody, Blue Dooley. And you might notice two monster trucks on the workbench. You might also notice you can see most of the top of the workbench. This weekend and last weekend we worked on getting the shed put together. Took a couple hours this morning to finish getting everything moved into the shed, and then get the workbench and the toolboxes, I'll even show you, cleaned up. But now all of the crap that needs to be in the shed is in the shed, not where the wife's Jeep parks. The underside of the workbench has been mostly straightened up. My metal rack and some wooden stuff. Still a little messy, but it's better than it was. So in this video, we're going to go over both of these trucks, a trailer, and some other projects that we're kind of starting to work on. Of course, it's winter time. Well, it's November. So really need to get the snowplow back together and make some modifications to that. We might actually bring that out here, show on the workbench, or we might just talk about it in the office when we go to look at some trailer stuff. Anyways, what I have here is a J Concepts Lloyd body on my HPI Wheelie King chassis. It also has the very tall 2.2 RC four-wheel drive mudslingers on it, which are just a hair taller than the monster truck tires the Wheelie King came with from the factory. The Wheelie King was actually a 12th scale truck, not a 10th scale truck. So that's why these tires are so much smaller than the other trucks. The other truck, if you have not seen the channel before, is the OG from the mid-90s, 1990s, Kyosho USA 1, which is a four-wheel independent monster truck. It runs the same size tires as the Clodbuster. In fact, those are actually Tamiya Clodbuster tires. It was the only competition the Tamiya Clodbuster had back in the 90s, because the Traxxas Stampede came out several years after both of those trucks came out and ran smaller tires, was two-wheel drive, wasn't even in the same class. So I've almost got the Kyosho ready to go. We'll go over some new 3D printed parts here in a bit, but we're going to do some monster truck things, as I've had this body for 2 years now and still haven't painted it and still haven't built a chassis for it. So let me grab the GoPro and get you a little closer. Also, I should mention that this is the J Concepts Lloyd body. That is a 1988 Chevy body from J Concepts as well. Now these are my new 3D printed parts. I didn't try to get any caster in them at all. I made these substantially thicker, as well as squared these off, made these thicker as well. I also put two holes here in the bottom, well, one on for each one. But that way I can put a set screw in to hold those pins in place. And then these two holes here are to keep it from the tire from steering, as I just don't have four-wheel steering yet on this truck. I beefed the top piece up quite a bit, added some curves, and just tried to add a little more material around here and around here, so the truck can actually take a little bit more abuse on a landing. So I need to print this part out. I already have this part printed out for the other side, and then bolt these two together and put them on the truck. This is actually running J Concepts motors, and I'm really happy with the performance of those in this truck. The only thing I'm not happy about this truck is the Traxxas paint I tried. That, and I got quite a bit of overspray. So I'll probably get a new body and throw this one away because it looks like shit. So for the Wheelie King, I used it as a rock crawler. If you go back early on the channel, there's actually some of the first videos I made was with this truck. and the CXT. But square tube axles, Savax, steering servos. I'm moving away from Spectrum and Savox. Just not happy, not necessarily with their performance, but the performance versus cost on the Savax stuff and the Spectrum stuff. There's cheaper stuff that does better. These big old tires have a 35 kg Red Cat branded servo, and it'll throw these things no problem. And when it's sitting still, it doesn't buzz. This thing sitting still, both of these Savox servos chatter constantly. The only time they quit chattering is when you pick the truck completely off the ground. And that's annoying as hell. So these Savoxes are going away. Like I said, we got the monster truck tires. But biggest thing is, you might notice the wheelbase is a little short. Again, this truck actually has Crawler King suspension links on it, which make it longer, but it's still a 12th scale truck, and that's a 10th scale body. But the performance on it is pretty good. So what I'm going to do, we'll get this dusty body out of the way. So the Fly Sky radio I got, the Noble, came with this little 4-channel radio. So I just threw it in here just to see how fast I could get it set up. This is the Red Cat 550 can motor and the Hex Fly speed controller out of the 53 hauler. I just threw them in here, proof of concept. It's the only downside I have with the Red Cat hauler is this motor just doesn't have enough torque for that big of a truck, and even in this thing, it's pretty damn slow. So I'm gonna get rid of this motor. I probably will just keep this Hexfly speed controller in there. There's nothing wrong with it. It's 2 to 3S LiPo capable. So I think I'm going to replace this motor with another J Concepts monster truck motor, sealed can motor, probably a 27 turn, which is what that truck's running. That truck, I'm really happy with the way those motors work in that truck. So I think in this truck, it'll work just as well. So what I'm going to do is the battery box, the steering cross member here, I'm going to actually sandwich these in a flat rail chassis. And then here, I'm going to spread these mounts out far enough to get the correct wheelbase for the truck. But I'm going to probably have more of a squared off chassis. But I'll put some bracing in here just so it looks a little more tube-like. I got enough rod. I can make the base of the chassis flat rail and then run some rod up to make it look more like a tube chassis. But I'm going to take the steering on the front of this truck is a servo on axle. The back runs to a linkage down to an arm, over a linkage to another arm, and it's okay. It's not great. But I think what I'm going to do is actually do cable steering on the truck. I think I'm going to mount the servos up in the chassis and then run the cable from the servos down the arms to here, kind of like Capo did with one of their crawlers. I think I'm just going to kind of rig up I'll make a mock cylinder here for like a hydraulic ram, and then just have the cables come into it, and then just maybe have an arm off to each side, and that'll do the steering on this truck. I know the servos could probably do it. Finding the right cable to use as a push-pull setup, that might be a problem. I might actually use a winch cable and run it through some thicker tubing, but These shocks, they have been through a lot. They leak, so this truck will have to get new shocks. But the battery box in this thing is pretty slick, so I'll use the battery box and the other thing as well as the transmission. That'll kind of space the flat rails out, and then I can use the factory battery box and just kind of come up with my own chassis design, some new body mounts. But even the Lloyd's even a little big for well, it completely goes over that Chevy body, and it's quite a bit bigger. So I've had this body because it's based on the I don't know if it was still Kaiser Willys when this truck was made, or it was Kaiser's Jeep, but this is based on the 5/4 ton Kaiser Jeep pickup truck that was in the military, and that's actually its nickname is 5/4 ton because it is a 1 1/4 ton truck. So I'm gonna switch between probably both of these tires on this truck. I'm not going for like a really super scale setup on this. In fact, I had actually tossed around doing a leaf spring monster truck with this chassis. Just kind of depends on how far I want to build and how much I want to build. I do know how to mount the leaf springs to these, and then I could actually probably use the metal links as traction bars to keep the pinion at the correct angle. But that's kind of where we are on these two. This one, just want to get it running. I'll probably paint up a new body for it and slap it on there at some time, but that's not really a basher. It's 30 years old. Plastic's on it's probably brittle, so I just want it running and driving and looking kind of cool. That way, you know, if I go to events, I can take it with me and amaze people that have never seen this truck before. This is going to be a little bit more of a basher. We don't really have a lot of monster truck racing around me, so we're just going to kind of build it kind of as a monster truck, kind of as a mega truck crawler, rock bouncer kind of setup. But like I said, I might have a little too hot a motor in it to make it a great crawler, but it'll be a fun truck to drive around. Yeah. Hit some jumps with it, maybe bounce up some steep hills with it. So now that the heater kicked on, we'll go inside, hop on the computer, and kind of show you some trailer stuff. But yeah, you can see the workbench now. This is going to be a little tough to see because the truck's kind of sitting in the shelf, but the cab has been pulled apart because the actuator I was using for the bed I stole to put on the 53. Also, you might notice there's a Brooder track loader there. So this has a 10-channel FlySky radio in it, the same one I use for the Grand Hauler. This truck doesn't need quite as many channels to run, so I'm going to pull the 10-channel receiver out of this, and I'm going to put an 8-channel receiver in it so I can use the FlySky Noble. So the thing we need to work on, there's a couple of things I want to do to the truck besides change the receiver. The dump mechanism worked, but it didn't work really well, so I would like to put a better dump mechanism in this so the truck can actually haul more weight. And I narrowed the crawler tires down so I could get more steering angle, but I'm not really happy with the way they turned out. So the truck might be getting new shoes, or maybe I'll leave the backs the way they are and find some narrower tires to run up front here. I'd like to find some stiffer tires as well. This truck needs substantially stiffer foam than what's in it. I got this to try an RC, but it barely reaches this bed. Just because the truck sits so much higher than it did when it was just a toy truck. So I'm not sure if I'm going to RC convert this or not. We might give it a shot anyways. I have a 10-channel radio I could throw in it. But we'll jump on the computer and go over trailer stuff here. But this is what I'm working on in FreeCAD. I've decided to try and 3D print the self-unloading belt trailer, commodity trailer. Kind of depending on where you are, will kind of determine its name. The highlighted portion at the front, that's what I'm actually printing out right now, is the nose section of the trailer. So this part right here, I have a slot in here, so I have some adjustability to make the belt tighter or looser. There's a notch in here. And I got most of the vertical supports. They also, of course, 90 into the trailer. I don't have the steps. Oops. I don't have the steps in here yet, but there's supposed to be a ladder here in the center of the trailer. I do have the two long diagonals done, and I have the back mostly kind of fit out. Now, I'm pretty much maxing out the printer in every dimension. So I'm going to be able to add a couple of pieces here to the bottom of the trailer to bolt the suspension to. And then I'll also have to put some rails back here to bolt the drive mechanism for the belt. But this is kind of where I'm at right now. It is still a kind of a V-hull shape. The crossbars, I didn't really measure how far apart they are. I just kind of spaced them apart till they looked good, and then just went so many from the front of the trailer and then started at the back with the same spacing to the front. And then that's kind of where the ladder ended up. And I just kind of spaced them out to what I thought looked good. The trailer length is 45 inches from the very front of this. Actually, it's a little over 45 inches because the very front part of the hull here, to back here, is 45 inches. So about 45¼ inches probably after I get everything bolted onto it. So if we switch over here to Bamboo Labs, this is what's on the printer right now. And it has about an hour left, maybe a little over an hour. But it pretty much has taken up most of the print bed from side to side. This is actually the front part of the print bed right here. So, yeah, and then height is, well, you can actually see it. It's 246 millimeters by 184 millimeters by 155 millimeters. It's 155 millimeters wide, tall, and then 184 millimeters wide. So we go over here to device. We got hour 10 left. With the supports that I printed at, it needed 472.85 grams of material, and it took, total time is going to be 12 hours, 35 minutes. Well, 36 minutes. So that didn't stay what it was supposed to. So, because I changed it to PLA because I ran out of ASA. So hopefully, but it still looks good in the printer itself. So that's where that's it. That's actually why it's called live bottom test. Is well, this is kind of the most complicated part of the trailer. So if I can print this well, or in reasonable shape, The rest of the trailer will be pretty straightforward. So I'll have to cut this part down into sections that'll fit in the printer. And hopefully this part's not too tall to fit in the printer. I mean, it's not going to be very hard to glue these portions on if I got to print them separately. That's no big deal. So what I'm actually going to do, planning to do with the 3D print, is get it all printed out, glue the sections together, but I'm still going to use sheet metal. I'll get a piece of sheet metal that'll run pretty much the end to end, and I will bend it and cut it so it'll fit in here. And then the sheet metal will sit inside here, and then I'll bolt it, or I might throw some screws in it, and I might actually try to glue it together. So I'll spray or put some adhesive along the sides, the bottom, set that sheet metal in, and then the sheet metal will actually give it, because of the bends in the bottom, that'll actually give the trailer its structural rigidity, I'm hoping. Right now, if this doesn't succeed, I'm only $20 in materials. I've already spent way more than that trying to do a metal version of the trailer. So I'm going to try this 3D printed version first, see how it comes out, make some changes if I need to or not. And then if I'm happy with it, I might offer this one for sale. I'm going to have too much material and too much time invested in it to just give it away for free. But that's only if it works. If it doesn't work, or I'm not really super happy with it, I probably won't actually give anyone the file. But I'm also going to talk to a friend of mine who is a welder, an actual welder. That is his official position and job. He actually had his own welding company when he lived in Wyoming. So he actually is a much, much better welder than I. I'm going to talk to him to see if maybe he thinks he could probably TIG the key stock together a little better than I can MIG it. And I'm going to talk to him, see how much he might want, or how much it'd cost me to have him TIG it together after I get like all these ribs bent and cut to length, all the side pieces cut and bent to length. So I'm still planning on doing a metal one at some point, but I think I'm going to call in a professional welder to help me actually get a much better looking trailer at the end. So that just kind of depends on how this turns out and if he's up for the task or not, because it's not going to be a small feat, you know, welding up all these ribs together and then welding the key stock to the sheet metal hull. That's what I'm going to call it. That's probably not correct, but it's hull shaped. So yeah, that's the trailer. It's going to be symmetrical, side to side, and then with the exception of the drive motor. So the motor will probably bolt right here on the back. So I might have to notch this back a little bit. Not 100% sure how I'm going to mount it up quite yet, but I'd kind of like to use a small motor and a 90-degree drive. So the motor will sit flush up against this side. You had the 90-degree drive, and then the roller will be back here on the back of the trailer. I also still need to design up a door. The cross pieces right now are just kind of to add some structural rigidity to the parts when they're printing. Also, that'll kind of also support the tarp when the tarp gets put on it. But that is where that is at. And that's kind of what we're going to be working on over the winter, the next couple of months. We're going to get this trailer worked on. The snowplow is going to get its few changes. Like I said, it's going to get a new hoist mechanism. I'm going to make some adjustments to the plow. I think I'm actually going to remake the blade. The A-frame bar where it actually connects to the truck I'm happy with, but I think I'm going to redo the actual plow blade itself. Might change out the wheels and tires on it. And then we got the two monster trucks, the one to finish up, and then the one we're going to build the metal chassis for. Do stay tuned, subscribe so you can see all of these projects come out, and be sure to hit like, as that just helps with the YouTube algorithms, and we'll catch you in the next one.